he interviewed an AI that was modeled off of a kid that had been killed in the Parkland school shooting. And apparently this AI had been created by this kid's parents as a method of coping. The best possible way to view that is as a horrible abuse of technology. Because effectively you have made a puppet replica of a dead kid, of some dead 17-year-old.
This thing is still becoming more and more a part of life. I'm going to have to somehow take it upon myself to learn about this thing and learn how to use it properly. If I don't understand this stuff, I won't be able to teach my kids about it in the way that is proper. And if I can't teach my kids about it in the way that is proper, someone else will teach them, quite possibly in a way that is not proper.
I think the reason that AI scares people is probably because it does such a good job of imitating a person. It's artificial intelligence, so it's a fake intelligence.
It is smart, but it is not wise. And wisdom is what matters. It should not replace your ability to do the task if the task is worth doing. But that then lends itself to another point, which is the task worth doing, or is the task worth automating?
New technology should always be at least taken at arm's length first, because there are very few technologies based on what they are that are necessarily a bad thing. You ought to keep it at arm's length. Don't shove it away, but don't immediately embrace it either.
What are we drinking tonight, Ethan?
So this is something that my father-in-law brought for our baptism party. It is I think that's the company name. This is a Weiss beer from Hacker Shore in Germany. It's very good. It's very good chilled.
Okay. Is it a stout or?
It's a Weiss beer, so it's a lighter, closer to an ale, or it may have like an amber look.
Okay.
I can't tell because the bottle's dark.
Fair enough. That was in my head when I asked if it was a stout. Like, it just looks like a stout. Or rather, it looks like the extra stout Guinness that I've been consuming from my fridge in recent days.
Apparently, they've been brewing in Bavaria since 1417.
Very nice. There's something special to that, to the
It's in
history
Munich.
behind a beer like that. But what would you compare it to that normal layman might drink, I guess? That's the review everybody needs right there. Just that sound after you make it, if you have some of a beer. Perfect.
In case you missed it the first time, here it is again. There we go.
Slightly reminiscent of God of War. Love it. But yeah, what would you compare it to in terms of like a normal beer you might find?
Like, is this a regular beer you might find?
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of beers too often. It's definitely not like basically any other American beer. The closest that I've had to it has mostly been a couple of craft beers that I've had on draft. But it's
Okay.
it's a Weiss beer, so it's a light, amberish type.
For my drink, I have something called Keeper's Heart. So, when I moved into this new place, went to the liquor store with Joe, and we were looking at stuff to buy. And I decided that I hadn't already spent enough money, prospective money, in the liquor in my hands or such. And so I went for something Irish. And I only half succeeded because this is only half Irish. This is Irish whiskey and bourbon mixed together.
Well, that sounds like it's half Ireland and half Kentucky, and I think you've got something going. You got something going for you there.
It's darn good, I say. So, and when I come down and visit you next, I will bring it, as previously discussed. So,
I have to say, Kentucky is my favorite state besides my own.
well, you'll get to sample some of it then. They had two versions of it. They had this bourbon and Irish version, and then they had a Irish and American version, which was rye instead of the bourbon component. So I ended up just going for the Irish and bourbon option, but Who knows? Maybe I'll try the Irish and rye and see what that's like. So
Yeah.
it seems like that would be a decent combination. Just more herbally a little bit.
Hmm.
Speaking as somebody who does not have a sophisticated palate in any sense, like I enjoy it as any man might.
Yeah, I don't think
So
either of us are gonna, take a swig of something and go,
yeah.
I detect notes of cranberry and limoncello. Like you're drinking a stout. No, that's what I did. That's what I detect. I promise. And like, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go drink my beer.
So I have a task for the people in the comments. Step 1, like and subscribe. Step 2, become a long-term listener. And 3, as part of your journey of being a long-term listener, if we ever get pretentious like that, tell us off. Right then and
Find
there in the
me.
comments.
Find me. Come to my house and slap me.
Do it.
Actually, if I ever make that face after drinking wine, I'll probably just give everyone around me permission to shoot me on the spot because it's at that point I think I will have descended so far into my own ass that nobody can save me.
Depends. If I take you up on it, it'll be me taking a shot. So
You could shoot me in the leg.
I meant shoot myself with liquor. Well, we wanted to have a chat about AI this evening. So, and since, while Ethan is the resident history expert, I am the resident tech expert to a point. Um, he decided to let me talk more this evening for once.
That's just because he knows more about it.
That
Computers
this
make
is
my head hurt, so
there's a reason I run the editing side of this.
I write on a typewriter.
Dude, that's such an amazing thing, though. Like no one does that, but I mean that in the best way possible. So, from the typewriter to AI, how did we? Yeah, how did we get here? How did we get here? I guess a better question to ask about AI is just what is it, and how ought I to understand it? Because it's this big and new and scary thing, and everybody says it's going to take your job. Everybody says it's going to take your online business. It's going to flood social media. It's going to make a fake video of you saying stuff you didn't say. And they're not just saying that; these things are happening.
Well, yeah.
And it's going to completely upend life as we know it. And it's going to be like the transition that the internet was in modern life. It's going to be that, but bigger, or at least so we are told. Um, and we're not just told it. I think there's a good chance that actually happens. A better than good chance that happens. And what does that mean? I don't know. But it behooves me, and it behooves everybody, I think, to start thinking about what AI actually is. And how do I begin to comprehend that? How do I begin to understand it, and what are the principles at play? So, and the biggest thing I'd like people to initially realize is that at the end of the day, it's just another advance in technology. At one point, we couldn't write. And then we began to write stuff down. And then we began to use the printing press and spread knowledge far faster than ever could be done before. And ideas became much more pervasive and powerful than they ever were before. Then as time goes on, you get electricity. Then as time goes on, you get cars. As time goes on, you get planes. As time goes on, you get computers. As time goes on, you get the internet. As time goes on, you get Microsoft, literally everywhere. And now as time goes on, you get AI. So at a super basic level, that's really all it is. Commonality among all of those innovations as well is that they took hold and they're here to stay. They're never really going away. Or if they are going away, they're getting superseded with something else to the delight or chagrin of anybody. Like maybe automobiles get replaced with something, Hopefully not. But who knows? The point is that these things are here to stay. Um, More to the point of what it is, I'd argue that it's really just a fancy and hyper efficient search engine.
Yeah, that's kind of what I rely very heavily just on observation and reason when I'm thinking about something new.
Mm-hmm.
But my general experience with AI in what I've seen it do, at least as it stands now, talking about ChatGPT and Google's AI and whatever else,
Mm-hmm.
it just seems like you ask it a question and it brings back search results that answer the question, or it goes and it searches the whole internet and it takes information from multiple different sources and just compiles them into one answer for you, which just seems like a more efficient and probably more complex version of just typing in a couple of keyboards and it bringing up a couple of sites. Now, this might be jumping ahead just a little bit, but every time that something new is invented, particularly after the Industrial Revolution and after the Enlightenment, every time there is a new idea, every time there is a new invention, a new gadget, a new fad, just anything that is new, there is this tendency, because it's new and exciting, and particularly because we think of ourselves in an evolutionary mindset and we think that we need to constantly elevate as a race when we're elevating everything except what should be elevated, which is the soul.
Mm-hmm.
There's a tendency, it seems to me, and there always has been. Every new technology is first invented, then it's used for a little bit, and then it is immediately abused. Now people see it, and then they immediately just slam the pedal to the floor, and they chug right forward without caring at all about what's in their way, what they might be tearing down. And I think with AI, and particularly because of the internet, there's more and more people that are aware that this happened in the past. And I think with AI, there's a lot of people who are afraid of that happening. Not so much that AI is going to be this big, scary monster that it takes over the world and uploads itself into everybody's homes and makes everything, it makes all your appliances short circuit and it blows up your house and whatever. There aren't too many people that are afraid of that happening, I don't think, but there's a lot of people, I think, that are afraid of this just, oh, we're just going to put the pedal to the floor. And we're just going to use this new technology in literally any way that we can think of. And some examples of that I can think of off the top of my head. Did you hear, it was a month or so ago, or maybe a little bit longer, there was a big story about a guy who had proposed to an AI.
No, not really surprising, but no.
So this guy had, and I don't know how serious it was, or whether or not it was kind of just for kicks and giggles, but I know this has happened more times than just this one isolated incident. Apparently, this guy wound up using this AI so much, and it had this relaxing female voice, that he finally just asked it to marry him, and it said yes. And this guy's being interviewed about it, and then when the news anchor asked the AI about what to say or about how it felt, it gave basically any woman's response upon being asked to be married and saying yes. And
So in other words, it acted like an AI.
what was even worse about it was that this guy already had a human wife.
Oh, wow.
He had a wife and a child. And then the wife starts blaming herself for not giving him enough emotional validation or not paying enough attention to her or anything like that. It's just a huge mess. I don't know how serious it was or if it continued. I hope it didn't. But that is one example of things going horribly wrong with AI. Because I remember when Siri first became a thing. Like when Siri first became a thing, basically, I remember older folks' reactions being, well, Google was bad enough, and now you just made it even easier to search for things. It was the standard complaint of life being too easy for young people, is what I remember uh, from when Siri first became a thing. But I also remember that Apple had programmed Siri a certain way because they had thought ahead. They had programmed Siri a certain way so that if you asked Siri to marry you, her response was, "I'm sorry, I don't think you're my type." And then she just and then that would be it.
So when I look at the example of that guy, who proposed to the AI, like you said, I mean, yeah, the first thought in my head is basically what a pathetic excuse for a human being. And then my more charitable side kicks in and basically says, yeah, he needs help. He needs therapy.
Yeah.
Um,
If it was serious, that's an actual serious mental issue, and he either needs a psychologist or an exorcist. It's one of the two things.
mhm. But it
There's a
speaks to
serious
the
problem
potential
there.
dark side of this. I mean, absolutely, like you said.
And there's also this something of a trend happening where families who have lost someone, I don't know if it's a company that's doing this or if it's or whatever it is, that families who have lost a family member are using AI to create basically a simulacra of that family member. Like I remember several months ago, and basically they feed this AI uh, images and video and audio recordings of this person so that it can do its best to imitate the person. Just basically with a moving picture with the whoever's that person's voice is coming out of it. I remember a few months ago there was this I think this murder case in Arizona where the family of the victim had used AI to basically create a video message of the victim forgiving the perpetrator. And apparently it's become a thing where that people are doing this to cope because just a couple of weeks ago, I forget what his name is. He was a CNN news anchor a long time ago. He interviewed an AI that was modeled off of a kid that had been killed in the Parkland school shooting. And apparently this AI had been created by this kid's parents as a method of coping. And it was basically a picture with ChatGPT attached to it, so you ask it a question and it answers. But I don't know what they've fed this picture, what they've fed this AI. Whether it was just like his face and his voice and a little bit of his personality, or if they've even like uploaded, test scores, papers, all sorts of things so the AI can figure out how this kid would respond to these questions. And it was the typical thing is that this news anchor asked this kid, what would you do about gun laws? And then this kid responds with, that is a great question. I would propose for stricter gun control and common sense and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it just spouted all of the liberal talking points that he fed it. But Celeste, please go back to bed. Now she wants to see mommy. But like I was saying,
Parkland school shooter AI thing.
yeah. So this basically it was an entire interview of this reporter interviewing this AI pretending to be a 17-year-old kid, which at the best possible way to view that is as a horrible abuse of technology.
Yeah.
Because effectively you have made a puppet replica of a dead kid, of some dead 17-year-old. and are now trying to imitate the kid to make people think that he's come back or that they can still talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
Which these parents, who apparently created this as a coping mechanism, seriously need help. Apparently, there was a thing a while back of uh, Twitter's AI assistant going on a Nazi rant. I didn't look too much into that. I just know that it blew up the headlines and a lot of people were talking about it. Or X, excuse me. Not Twitter anymore. But basically, that it's AI went into a full on Nazi rant and that it was basically talking about how the Jews need to be eliminated and all of that. So whether
Yeah,
or
not
not
the
that was
best PR.
actually the AI or some hacker that was having a fun time, I don't think anybody's actually fully sure yet. But because AI is this incredibly advanced, and it's not even really AI in the way that well, in a way it is AI because it's an artificial intelligence
Mm-hmm.
that is just an incredibly advanced way of gathering information from various sources and presenting it back to whoever has asked it. I guess the question at that point is how do we make sure that it's gathering information from the right sources
It's hard to
and not
say.
not going on Nazi rants because apparently it found an ebook copy of Mein Kampf and decided to use that as a source. And what is the proper response when people are basically making computerized puppets of their dead relatives
Mm-hmm.
for AI to imitate?
There's basically two categories of problems there, if you think about it. And first is the problem of the data set and the training that the AI has had.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only as good as what it's been fed. Now, if you ask the internet a question and the internet is usually wrong about something, well, an AI trained on that same, on the internet, as it were, is going to be wrong. And I'll get back to that later because, in short, AI cannot replace your critical thinking. You're screwing yourself over if you fall into that
Yeah.
trap. The other problem there is in each of those cases, just a super powerful technology meeting the brokenness of human life, you know? And that's a horrible and tragic thing. It's not new. Um, and it's not like it just got invented with the internet, although much could be said about, problems with mental illness in the modern world and all that stuff. Like, if you put somebody in a bad situation and then introduce to them some coping mechanism that's not good for them, and
Yeah.
they take it, they're making themselves less of themselves and becoming more and more sad, you know? Like all of those situations are just, wow, really? Like how did this great son or daughter of God just fall and degenerate so much? Um, whether because of a whole host of, bad decisions or a number of bad decisions or just grief or who knows what. So all of that has to be factored in when you introduce something new, but I guess I look at it this way. Say I put myself in a time machine and I transport myself back to the dawn of the automobile.
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming out and it's making more inroads on modern living than some people would like, or more than some people perhaps. Just it's things are moving faster now. Whole industries are being disrupted, whole ways of living are being disrupted, society is being massively disrupted by this thing. Um, not in a day, but over enough time and still fast enough. And say that early on in that process, like my son gets hit by a guy who's recklessly driving and dies. Or say that my son is a reckless driver,
Mm-hmm.
hit somebody else. And it's this big, new, and scary thing in the world. And it's, like I said, it's disrupting everything. It's very natural to look at that, or look at a tragedy that happened to someone else in this time and clam up and say, yeah, I can't deal with that right now. I think this thing is terrible. I think it should be, you know, done away with. I don't think anybody should use it. And there's a natural grief that has to be gone over with any event. So, like, I'm not downplaying that in any sense. But it hopefully gets to the point of what I mean when I describe people thinking AI is big and scary. Like, it's too big for them to deal with for one reason or the other, whether because of tragedy or just it's too big a thing. And I don't know how to deal with it. Um, Again, grief's not the only, it's just one small example of this. Like, if it's just too big a thing for me to deal with and too disruptive, like, how do I comprehend it?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if I can somehow step back from that and look at the world around me, I realize the world ain't slowing down for me and my problems and my views and my opinions. It's still moving forward. This thing is still becoming more and more a part of life. And one way or another, I have to reckon with that. Like, if I want to be a part of society, and I don't mean fall society and everything, hell no to that idea. But if
Yeah.
I want to still be in community with people, I'm going to have to somehow take it upon myself to learn about this thing and learn how to use it properly. And I'll probably muck it up along the way and make a bunch of mistakes. Fine. But I need to at least engage with it. I need to try and understand it. I don't have, in my opinion, the luxury of just saying, yeah, who cares? Too new fashion. I'm going to be the old guy. And I don't have the option of saying, well, I'm just going to dive in headfirst and use this thing for every possible thing I can think of.
Right.
Like, there has to be a middle path there. And that's my core point. I also look at this, and this is also jumping ahead, but I look at this from the perspective of, um, God willing, a husband and father one day. If I don't understand this stuff, I won't be able to teach my kids about it in the way that is proper. And if I can't teach my kids about it in the way that is proper, someone else will teach them, quite possibly in a way that is not proper. So it is my responsibility to know and to engage with it.
Speaking as a husband and father, your responsibility is not to know the answer to every question
Mm-hmm.
and not to understand how everything works. So if there is some new technology, like I cannot actually wrap my mind around how AI works.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot wrap my mind around how most computer related things work because my brain is not wired that way. So if I was to have to be put in a situation where I need to explain that to my kids, that is something I would have to hand off to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not well, we just won't talk about that. It's, I need to find somebody who can explain it better than I can so that you don't go down off the wrong path at some point. Now, when it comes to AI,
I'll briefly say, yeah, I think you're spot on. Because if you want them to get the full technical explanation or a better technical explanation, yeah, pass it off to somebody you trust who knows. Um,
I think my
but what I
basic
really
fundamental understanding is enough for the time being, but
exactly
that is just
understand it
what
off of first
computers have been
principles.
doing, just way faster, way more efficiently. I think the reason that AI scares people is probably because it does such a good job of imitating a person,
Mm-hmm.
imitating, I don't know, imitating the verbiage of a person. It's artificial intelligence, so it's a fake intelligence. It is a not a replacement for an intelligence, but it is a simulacra of intelligence, a simulation.
To use something from last episode, it is smart, but it is not wise.
Yes.
And wisdom is what matters. It has a high IQ, and
It
a high
has,
IQ only matters for certain things.
and it has no EQ whatsoever. All it has is IQ. And it has no heart, it has no soul. It is a cold and lifeless machine.
Mm-hmm.
And all it can do is pretend to be a person.
No matter how seductive it sounds. Absolutely.
So now, just my personal opinion right off the bat, I have done just fine without AI for pretty much my whole life at this point. I personally don't see a reason for why I would need it myself. I don't actually see a need for AI, and I think the majority of people don't actually need it. This is
Mm-hmm.
just an opinion of a lot of new and modern technologies that I have. I think it's and maybe something that's a nice thing to have, but if it doesn't fulfill an actual literal need as far as humanity is concerned, most people ought to be okay with going without it. And I don't think it should be anywhere near as widespread as it is now. I do think that there are definitely some specific positive applications
Mm-hmm.
for artificial intelligence, which is to say that there are positive applications for just a really good computer program. I know that hospitals can probably use them for scheduling and keeping track of patient data, provided that they're well made. They cannot replace the role of a nurse at all. They cannot replace the role of a doctor at all. But I think you can probably use it for scheduling, keeping track of records. And I think one of the things that usually has to be, or one of the ways that we need to be using any new technology is that we use it as little as possible when it first comes out. We need to use it in as few and specific circumstances as we can to avoid mistakes for one thing, and to avoid it actually replacing a human being where it ought not replace a human being.
Fair enough.
I don't want AI to be designing a bridge. I don't. My dad worked in a design department of the Missouri Department of Transportation for about 30 years. I don't want AI doing his job. It can check his work and maybe look for a mistake, but I don't want AI doing that job. It doesn't even know how to draw a hand. I don't want it figuring out how to draw a bridge. Because at the very least, it'll cause an issue in the construction of the bridge. And at the worst, that bridge will collapse. So that is something that you want a human being to do. You want AI designing. You don't want AI designing things that could fall down.
Well, yeah.
And you don't want them managing job sites where people are building things that could fall down.
Well, of course. But there's a number of tasks that it can do. Like you said, scheduling. It can do a lot of things with deep research. If I apply it to the bridge example, yeah, it could check your dad's work. It can offer suggestions, and then he
That's
can
about as
say,
far as I would go with it.
then he can still have the final say over things.
And it can do a lot of because part of the job of the structural engineer is also to look at materials and find out what is best for the building and what is best for the company. So what material is going to basically be in the Venn diagram of that center part of the Venn diagram of being inexpensive and good. And sometimes that can take a long time, and there's materials that have to fill certain criteria. So AI could actually do that.
Yeah, you train it well enough, it could absolutely do that.
Train it well enough, and it can do that. That is totally fine. If AI can take out the sort of monotonous and the most time consuming parts of a job, then that is wonderful. That's great.
You're expanding the horizon beyond checking the work now. But I think you're on the right track with it at the same time. It ultimately comes down to the task at hand. and just, okay, is this a good tool for the task?
Yeah.
Was this trained properly? Does this actually work? Is it going to cause problems?
As
Like,
long as that's how it's used as a tool.
yeah.
Because I don't want to give AI a prompt of, I don't want people giving me a prompt or giving AI a prompt of, hey, design me a suspension bridge to go over the Mississippi River at this point, and then filling in whatever it does, and then it takes like an hour and it comes back with a bridge design.
A bridge is such a critical piece of infrastructure that just as you hear that, my instant reaction is, yeah, it can give you a basic shape maybe, but I still want engineers, multiple engineers who really know their stuff looking over every inch of that bridge
Yeah.
and all of the materials and all of the engineering details that are beyond me, not my realm.
I would say
Like
the same thing
I don't
for
want to die.
buildings, for tunnels, for houses. I don't want AI to be doing the entire job of an architect,
Mm-hmm.
where the job of the architect is to design a house and design it correctly and design it for the place that it's in. I don't want an AI doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, AI can't even draw a hand properly. I don't want it designing a house. And I mean,
Yeah,
there are other potential uses that I can see for AI where it could be a good thing or it could be a good aid, which I think is really how we need to be thinking about it, is that AI should be a tech worker's companion in the same way that a hammer is a carpenter's companion.
exactly. Hey,
Now, you could pick up a
spot on.
rock to pound in the nail. You could use your own head. You could try to force the nail in if you're strong enough with your thumb. But hammers are specifically designed to do that job correctly,
Mm-hmm.
at least in the most efficient way possible. And they're designed to do more than one aspect of the job. You look at a basic claw hammer, it's designed to both pound in the nail and be able to remove it. And trust me, the removing the nail part is the probably one of the biggest innovations in tool technology that has ever been, is the claw on the back of a hammer to remove the nail. Because before then it was like pry bars and screwdrivers and pliers and whatever you could to get hold of that nail and yank it out.
Mm-hmm. And AI can help with the production of that new hammer when it comes out, but it's not going to necessarily create the idea. That doesn't make sense for it to create the idea.
No, because ideas have
It
to
makes
come
sense for some
from,
hick in his garage to create the idea. Like that, it's the image I like in my head. It makes sense.
well, AI cannot determine what a problem is or what the problem is. If you ask an AI what a problem is with something, all it's going to be able to regurgitate back to you is what human beings have observed, because it will have just scoured the course of the internet for like 5 minutes and figured out what people have observed, what there is a need for,
Mm-hmm.
or what a specific problem with a certain thing is. AI is not going to be making any inventions anytime soon. I don't
No,
think it's
most
going to
likely not.
be
Unless
coming up
those,
coming up with the basic idea of a design for an invention.
if the inventions eventually boil down to, in one form or another, like solve this math problem or solve this science problem, solve this formulaic problem, with a bunch of examples, way faster than human beings will, um, it's going to be able to do that. But it's not going to be able to be an artist.
What I'm saying is that it will not unprompted sit and listen and then speak up and suggest an idea. At least it shouldn't. A company shouldn't have a board meeting with an AI in a box on a table that's there to sit and listen and then speak up with an idea. And I don't think AI is really going to do that, because most of them are programmed just to respond when you directly ask it something or tell it to do something.
Mm-hmm.
But, and even when it comes up with a solution, it will not come up with a solution of its own accord. If you think about one of the differences that people tend to uh, tend to put between man and the ape is man's ability to reason and man's ability to preemptively reason about something before attempting it. So one of the examples that I thought of was there's a banana up in a tree, and a chimpanzee on the ground wants the banana. Well, he reaches for it, but it's too far away. Well, there's a problem, and so he finds a stick, and then he tries to use the stick to knock the banana out of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
And well, that's a problem. It's still too far away. So then he looks and he finds another stick, and then at some point through his however long it takes him to work at it, he manages to attach the two sticks together and finally reach the banana in the tree. If you put a man in the position of the monkey trying to get that banana up in the tree, he's going to sit there and he's going to look at it for a little while and he's going to go, well, it's too high up for me to reach. And that stick ain't long enough. But you know what? I bet you if I put those two sticks together, they'd be able to reach it. And lo and behold, he does. He required no trial and error in order to do that.
Unless he's a guy like me.
Yes, but this is something that is unique to man. Now, there are people that aren't all that bright that would probably do exactly what the monkey did. But I would say the average man, if you put him in a position of problem solving like that, he'll probably look at it for a little bit, and then he'll propose an idea. And if it's a simple enough problem to solve, he'll probably come up with the right solution, like tying two sticks together to reach the banana in the tree. Now, if we ask, so say this guy is a complete idiot, and go and asks the AI to get the banana out of the tree. The only reason that AI knows how to get the banana out of the tree is because of somebody else having done it before and recording it. Like it has to draw sources from somewhere, and it has to be fed things. Like people think this way about the brain, that your brain has to be told things and has to just immediately accumulate knowledge in order for you to know anything or be good at anything, and that is not true. That human reason is just the ability to store and retain knowledge, because if that's all that it was, then computers are human. Or all computers have the same form of human reason, because they store knowledge. The difference is being able to use what we already know, and maybe even just after sitting and pondering for a while, even if we don't necessarily know anything, or if we know very little, coming to conclusions on our own. Either without having to go and ask too many people, or after going and asking people and exhausting everybody else and nobody having the right answer, being able to come up with yet another answer for the same question.
Mm-hmm. And the key difference there is that we can make value judgments in a way
I
that
think that's the short way of putting it.
Yeah, in a way that the chimpanzee cannot. So, because we can ultimately do the same process of trial and error, but what we're doing different from the monkey is making a value judgment, I think.
Yeah.
But to return to the AI thing, like we talked about examples of the bad, we talked about examples of the good, just some examples of good that it can be used for in my life. It has been used for in my life, I should say. There's a friend of mine who is, funny enough, a member of the Canadian Parliament. And he's in one of my Discord servers, or one of the Discord servers I'm in. And at one point he sends a message out there and is like, hey, by like this time today, like I need to know whatever you guys know, because he trusts us, about laws that like threaten the use of cash in societies. And he wanted to know stuff about central bank digital currencies. And finance is something that I've consumed a lot of content on and I know a fair bit about. So I knew some of the stuff that he was talking about. But I went to a couple AI engines. I used two. I used ChatGPT and I used Perplexity. And I asked them questions regarding this, like what laws exist in various countries about this stuff. What laws exist in states regarding this type of stuff? Are there any threats within certain new acts that came about recently, like the Genius Act, the Clarity Act, the whichever one was the anti-CBDC one as well. There were 3 that got passed recently. Are there any
Yes.
threats in those to cash being used? And of course it said, no, there weren't any threats. And it gave me a bunch of helpful information. But ultimately, what I sent my friend in Canada was not an output of an AI engine. It was me. The whole process was me who had a certain body of knowledge to begin with, asking the AI a number of questions, looking at the responses it gave, and treating them with a certain sense of skepticism, but also trust regarding certain things. So when it gives me a list of laws in various places about this type of stuff, I'm generally going to find that trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
When it makes a judgment that, there's nothing in this law that, threatens the use of cash in societies, and be like, okay, interesting. I'm sure that there's some potential slippery slope there, though, that could happen. Like, I retain my own critical thinking. And I
You
put
do.
all of that into my own thing that I sent this guy in Canada. Like,
Well,
I used it as a research assistant, but what I gave him was my own stuff.
well, and you took
Just,
you took what it gave you and you compared that with the knowledge that you already had.
mm-hmm,
You took that and compared it with what you already knew
mm-hmm,
about the subject. And basically after that you made that judgment call of, okay, based on what I know, this sounds like it's probably right. This sounds like it's probably right. That's kind of squirrely. I think I'm going to avoid that. And this
mm-hmm.
sounds like it's probably right. And then you take that and then you piece that together into a proper answer,
Exactly.
which
So,
is just how research is done. Now, my first instinct was to try to go to the library and find a book that had those laws in it, but since they're new laws that have been passed, I doubt there would be one. But
you can't go to the library, read, and come back by 11 a.m. that morning and have a good response prepared for somebody.
yes,
So,
yeah, I would say definitely in the time crunch, that was definitely the right thing to do, was to have the AI do the legwork so that you could do the rest of the work.
exactly. Now, let me give you a couple examples, um, one real and one potential. And I'll explain what I mean by that don't rely on the time crunch, but maybe are just worthwhile things. So, the real example, another thing I've recently used ChatGPT for, I asked it basically, hey, I'm a piano player who is not very good about playing, and I'd like to get back into practicing more. And I can't remember what I said about exactly like where I was at a skill level, but I also told it to, like, in my conversation with it, I told it to emphasize like I want to dive into music theory a bit more. Basically, what are things I can do? What's a learning plan I can come up with? Was what I ended up asking it in the context of this conversation over a couple prompts, and it gave me something I've got on my desk right now that's like a good output for all of that. Now, am I going to follow that step by step? No, for all sorts of reasons. Biggest of which is I'm me. Of course, I'm not going to follow that step by step,
Yeah.
but it's a starting point, and I can treat it as a starting point. I can look at that and I can say, okay, this is as if I Googled the solution. It just was way the hell more convenient than Googling the solution.
Well,
So
and I
that's
think
that's
the
that's an example. I'm going to
the
give you one. I'm
people.
going to give you one last one real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll continue my thought.
Sure. Let's say that you think to yourself, I wonder what books would be really good for Celeste to read at her age, at her reading level, regarding this. And I want Catholic examples of that because I'm a Catholic. I'm going to. What if you asked, pick your AI engine, that question? And it was like, hey, I want this, and oh, by the way, it can't have this content. And it gave you a list of books, and then you treated that list of books as a starting point for, like, okay, I've collected some good examples that the internet thinks is good. I can now go do my own research and figure out if they're actually good. if people that I trust way more than an AI actually say that they're good. But I've just saved time answering this problem.
I have saved time by it, but I also, one of the things that I was trained to do in my history program was do research and do it quickly.
Okay.
So I don't think I could do it as fast as AI could, but if in the morning my wife and I were talking and we kind of went, what are some books that when my daughter actually starts reading because she's 3 at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But if my wife and I are talking in the morning and we're like, what if what are some books that are going to be good? And there's like the kind of content that we're trying to avoid and all of that. I won't have maybe a fully comprehensive answer, but I will at least have a good starting list by nightfall.
All right.
So here's kind of the counter to that example, and then I'll go back to the thought that I had originally.
Mm-hmm.
There is not any situation in which I think, oh, I need to have a list of 12 books for my daughter to read and I need it now. I can have it tomorrow. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the times when I'm like, well, I've gone on this long without needing an AI for things, and I think I can probably go just a little bit longer. Now, if at some point I'm writing a book and I have a publication deadline and I'm having a hard time meeting it because there's some source that I need that I can't find, so I ask an AI where I can find it because I've sort of exhausted all of the methods that I know how to research and how to find things. At that point, yes, AI is a good thing for doing the thing that I already know how to do just way faster. It's the same logic with calculators and doing math with a pencil and paper. My children will all learn how to do math with a pencil and paper.
Mm-hmm.
My children will all learn how to research things properly, how to ask a question to be answered in a paper. Those are all things that they will learn. Those are all things that I know how to do. And before you rely on a piece of technology to do something for you, it really ought to be something that you know how to do, or at least that you know the basics of what needs to be done, especially when it's something like mathematics. You need to be able to come to the conclusion that 2 and 2 is 4 on your own before you start relying on a calculator to do things. And a lot of times the argument for that is like, well, when am I going to need to use it in paper to do that kind of thing on paper? Because it's so unlikely that I'm going to be without a calculator. I don't care how unlikely it is that you're going to be without a calculator, especially if you can get good at doing math in your head. You can actually do it faster than you could do it on a calculator. Sometimes you can solve the problem faster than you could type it in on a calculator, depending on what it is. Again, because it is a tool, it is an assistant. I could use a rock to hammer the nail in to the board, but if I use an actual hammer, it's going to be a lot faster. The tool that
Exactly.
was designed for that thing. So if and when I ask the question, okay, what books are going to be safe? For one thing, we're going to be looking at books that my wife and I remember from our childhood,
Mm-hmm.
which is what we do with television already. We remember shows from our childhood that we really liked. This is why streaming services are actually a really good thing. And then we go with those. And we screen them just to make sure that we're not remembering something. Or there was something in it that we didn't understand that we don't want our children to be exposed to. We screen that ourselves, and then we give a yay or nay. The reason that I don't necessarily trust AI to recommend things for my children for me completely, and why I would probably just skip the AI step and go around talking to people that I already know, and particularly people that have children and have children that are probably a little bit older than mine and have been through that already, is because there are very small, nuanced decisions and maybe nuanced critiques that I might have with a particular thing just because I'm me. and I kind of have an idea of how I would react at that age or how my wife would react at that age, or if there are just some things that don't sit right with me about it, even though AI may come back with an answer that is technically a correct answer to my question, if I am then watching something or reading something and I'm like, I don't know, something about this just doesn't sit right, I think we probably ought to just leave it alone. AI can't do that.
No, it
Again,
can't.
because that's conscience, that's concupiscence. No, not concupiscence, that's conscience, which is attached to the human soul. But that's something that some friends of mine might be able to do. So if I go and ask somebody, hey, what did you think of this book or this movie or this show? And they say, well, I liked it up until a certain point, and then it started getting really weird. So maybe just don't. Even if it's something that the AI would have said, oh, yeah, fully gung ho on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other things that, AI might have been okay with, and even some of our friends might be okay with, that my wife and I just hear and then immediately go, no. Just on principle for what the thing is, even though it technically meets the criteria.
Mm-hmm. You note that I listed in my example that you use it as a starting point for precisely these types of conversations and questions.
See, the thing is that I personally, my wife and I would just skip it as a starting point. The
And
only
I say
reason that
that's
I would
perfectly
use
fine. Yeah.
AI for that particular purpose is if I somehow needed that list now. And I can't imagine any circumstance in which I need a list of what books and movies and shows are okay for my, we'll just say she's 6, what books and movies and shows are okay for my 6-year-old daughter. I don't see why I need the answer to that question immediately, and why it's somehow not okay for me to figure that out by tonight or tomorrow night.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a pet peeve of mine. It's a frustration of mine just with modern society. Like, not everything has to be done right now. Not every answer has to be gotten right now. Because you can go and Google what caused the First World War and then have its little AI give you, oh, it was the shooting of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Or you can ask the informed question of what were some of the social, economic, political, and possibly moral and possibly religious circumstances that led to the sparking of the First World War, which, by the way, is something AI can't answer because that is far too complex. At least it can't as it stands right now. Maybe it can in the future, but by the time that it can, when you have had AI do that for you, instead of going out and researching that yourself, you have actually just robbed yourself of something.
But maybe to your horror that I'll correct you and say that it can do that right now. The
Okay, then I'm
quality of it,
horrified.
the quality of its answer will be dependent on a number of things, the model and its data set, in short. So I'm not going to say it'll give you a good answer, but
Either way,
it will give you an answer.
if you ask it to answer an informed, intelligent question for you, and we'll say that it does, we'll say that it gives the best possible answer. Even if it gives the best possible answer, you have just robbed yourself of something. Well, but look, I got it in like 10 minutes. I don't care. What you have just robbed yourself of is the work and the effort that you have put in poring over books and resources and past opinions, comparing them, contrasting them with one another, and then coming to your own conclusion and putting that last period on the page yourself. You have just robbed yourself of something by taking the work out of it. Which is why I don't like a society. I don't like that society thinks everything has to happen now. Give it to me now. Like, people complain if their internet is, if it takes a second and a half for an episode of Friends to buffer, and people completely lose their minds. Personally, I think AI is going to make that worse in some cases.
Oh, it absolutely will. No question about that.
because now it's like, oh, I can ask a question and then here's the answer. It gives me an answer in 12 seconds, or it writes an essay for me in 12 seconds. And then if you compare it with robotics, which they're starting to do, maybe it can build a bridge for me in a day. Because this bridge building robot has done that, but you have taken the work and the satisfaction out of it, at the very least, is what you have done. You pair it with robotics and you put a canvas in front of it and a paintbrush in its hand and tell it to paint something reminiscent of Caravaggio's Call of Matthew. Okay, it might do that, but you have robbed yourself of the work of creating the art. And you have robbed potentially somebody else of the work of creating that art. Because just because you told AI to do something and it does it, that does not make you the expert. That does not make you the artist. If I ask an artist, if I put these two things together, if I say, all right, well, let's just say that there's this AI that creates art, that creates imagery, and then there's this human artist. I see you smirking because
I couldn't resist it based
I'm
after the
not
last
letting this
episode.
go.
I
I'm
could
not
not
letting
resist
this
it
go.
after the last episode. You said AI could create art.
I said
And
AI
then-
could not create art.
You just did, and then rephrased it to imagery. So I couldn't resist a smirk at
I
that.
misspoke because I don't think it's art.
Anyway.
You have this AI that creates an imagery, and you have a human being, an artist, who has worked and practiced and trained himself and is a master, taking the quality of the work out. Or we'll even say that he's maybe, beginner to intermediate level.
Mm-hmm.
Taking the quality of it out. And the artist is willing to work for you for free, by the way. We'll put that in. So that the only difference, and you give them both the same prompt. You say, paint me a picture of Niagara Falls. AI comes back in 4 seconds with a picture of Niagara Falls, with an image of Niagara Falls or some simulated painting of Niagara Falls.
Mm-hmm.
Takes the artist a couple of hours. He looks at some pictures of Niagara Falls. He picks an angle. He finds the one that he thinks is best. Maybe he goes to Google Earth, looks at it from street views and from different angles and from above and all that. What he has created is art, and what the AI has created is not. And this is the counter to your argument that you, for putting the prompt in, are the artist, because AI has just taken the work out of it that it takes an artist to do. If I have a robot that can build a building for me and I tell it to build a building, I'm not a construction worker. The robot is. And if I have told this AI and this artist to paint me a picture of Niagara Falls, and the AI paints me a picture of Niagara Falls, and the artist paints me a picture of Niagara Falls, I will always choose, even if it might be visually inferior, I will always choose what the artist did. Because it has the touch of the human hand. And
Mm-hmm.
again, that is why I say AI art is not art, because art must be true, good, and beautiful. AI art is not true. Because it is a simulation. At the best, it is artificial.
I'm going to leave the AI art discussion for the side. There's a video coming out. Well, it will already be out by the time you see this. Go watch that. Give it another view. Give it 2 more views.
Give it 17 more views.
Yes, give it all the views. And like and subscribe.
And
But I want to return to one of your earlier points, because AI should not replace the work of the research.
No.
AI should not replace the work of the math, or rather, it should not replace your ability to do the research and to do the math. It should not replace your ability to do the task if the task is worth doing. But that then lends itself to another point, which is the task worth doing, or is the task worth automating? And that's a value judgment in each circumstance that ought to just be made prudently.
Well, and I think this
You
is
can
something
say-
that we
hold
didn't
on.
really get into when we talked about work and we talked about machinery, because that's what AI is. It's another machine.
Yeah, it is.
To put it very simply, but it's a machine.
Mm-hmm. To also go back to your point about the speed of life, and us generally being impatient bastards and wanting everything way faster than we perhaps ought to. As we both have said on this podcast, life should be slowed down. A wise man once said, the best way to acquire knowledge is to take it slow. That wise man being my co-host.
I don't remember saying that, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, I do. I edit, so I heard it way more times than you did.
Okay.
People should do that. People should learn knowledge and learn skills in a prudent speed. And they should accomplish the tasks of their daily life at a prudent speed. But that doesn't mean that life won't be busy.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that everything has to be done the hard way. And so when I look at all of the things I have to do, and I can feel that way to it right now, and I'm not even married with kids yet. Like, I'm going to want to automate some things. I'm going to want to make some things easier. So why wouldn't I use good tools for that? It doesn't have to be AI. It doesn't mean I have to use it for a particular circumstance. And I may want to do it the hard way because I enjoy it. I just want to. Like, it's a good idea compared with another good idea. At the end of the day, all I'm trying to say is that there are valid uses for AI, probably more than we think. Just like there are invalid uses for AI, definitely more than we think.
I would say the invalid uses for AI probably are of greater number than the valid uses for it. Because that's the way it is with almost every machine.
Yeah.
And almost every tool. There are more bad ways to use it than there are good ways.
Mm-hmm. And I'd say that, yeah. Like, but I want to know the good ways. And I don't need to know all the good ways, and I don't need to look at everything in my life and say, okay, is there a valid use case for AI here? No, I don't need to even really entertain that discussion.
But
I just need to do with life
intuitively.
Well, yes, and I do.
Get yourself into the habit where, like, all right, I don't have the time, I don't have the patience, I don't even know where to start. At this point, I'll hand it over to AI because I have been exhausted.
Yeah,
I will let it pick up where I leave off.
Exactly.
Which is what I would do if I knew an expert on any subject, basically.
Mm-hmm. I don't want the big and scary aspect of it to prevent people from doing that more than would be good for them. But in the same breath, I also acknowledge that there's a lot of good ways of doing things. Part of where I'm also coming from this, so my view is biased to an extent, because I have pet peeves as well. And one of them in tech support is dealing with old people. Or rather, dealing with old people, some old people are gems. And I'm not blaming them if they don't understand technology necessarily. What I more blame them for is not understanding technology because they have an explicit and expressed attitude.
It's the refusing to even attempt to understand it.
Exactly. Like, who the hell cares about this? And what you are doing with that is you are now being a burden on everybody else. You do not have the luxury.
Somebody else to explain something simple to you.
Yeah.
There really is no reason that you shouldn't know that.
Exactly. And with how, for all of the negative use cases, even with all the negative use cases that exist for it, like you and I have both said, AI is going to become part of society. I've seen enough people take the wrong attitude with the internet and tech and Microsoft and printers and all this other stuff and be a burden on other people. And not just be a burden on other people, but you set up your children for failure that way too.
Yeah.
We need to be wiser than that and learn from our mistakes there with regards to how I approach AI. In a sense, it's like the well-meaning moms who look at Pokemon and are just like, well, Pokemon talks about demons. Therefore, there are demons. Therefore, this is bad. I don't want my kids learning about demons. I can't deal with this. And it's like, well, that is such a wrong opinion.
I think
because you didn't take the time to actually understand the thing.
I think people usually, and this is just how man works, in general. This is part of our fallen nature. People rely too much on their knee jerk reaction to everything, their
Yep.
immediate gut reaction. And usually it is one of two extremes. And everybody has an immediate gut reaction to something that is one of these two extremes. I would say almost everybody. I won't say everybody, but it's like 99.9% of people have a
Yeah.
reaction that is one of these two extremes. And it takes the well formed to then stop yourself and pull yourself back, which is why you should always be in the habit of thinking before you talk, or at least openly react. Leave your reaction internal and then think about it.
Listen more than you speak.
Yes, that's why God gave you two ears and one mouth.
Said the wise oracle that was your mother, because she knew right.
I came up with that when I was teaching, actually. My mom
Oh,
never
fair
gave
enough.
me that. I'm sure somebody's mom did. God gave you two ears and one mouth. But I think people have these reactions. Usually there's like the one side that's like, oh, it's this great new thing. It's going to make life better and it will only ever be used for good. Well, and then the thing gets misused. And then the other people say, well, it's being abused over here. It's being used incorrectly. Therefore, the thing itself must be evil and we have to do away with it. This is exactly what that's what got us prohibition, was because of like the poor treatment of mental problems that people were having,
Hmm.
and a huge spike in alcoholism.
How tragic.
Huge spike meaning, you know, huge by that day's standards, but by our standards, huge spike was like boop. It was like that. A bunch of women got together and then said, "Lips that touch liquor will never touch mine." And then all of a sudden, we get sobriety movements. We get prohibition. Alcohol becomes outlawed because the Calvinist and Puritan reaction is that thing is evil, whereas the Enlightenment atheistic reaction is, oh, everything in the past is bad. This is something new, so it must be good. It's new and it's efficient, so it therefore must make my life better.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why the correct response, being the Catholic response, is usually the one that actually is right in the middle, which is, now, everybody hold on. Just wait a minute. What is it? And what does it do? There's a reason that temperance is a cardinal virtue. And it must be used in every circumstance, with everything. Now, the amount of use of a thing that qualifies as being the moderate or temperate use usually varies depending on the thing and depending on the person. Somebody with a higher tolerance for alcohol might be able to handle 2 glasses of whiskey, where somebody else may only be able to handle a half of one. This is where it takes time. You have to know yourself. That based on the nature of AI, I would say that a properly temperate use of the thing would still be quite infrequent.
Your analysis of, like you said, human psychology, human weaknesses, the gut reactions that people have, and everything else. I mean, spot on, dude.
I just
Spot
take
on.
mental note of things I see.
Yeah. And all you and I are both trying to do is just find that route in the middle. Like you
And
said,
I don't
like let's just
discount
actually
anybody.
be level headed for once. Let's not be one of the two crazy parties on either side.
Yeah. Or if we have that knee jerk reaction to something, how about we control ourselves and just hold on a minute and slow down?
Yep. There are only so many things in life that are actually urgent, to your point. Like someone posts a
Yeah.
video and says, yeah, AI is going to take all your jobs and you need to incorporate it in your business or else, or you're going to get left behind and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, those are valid points. Those are good points. Those are things worth considering. But the urgency can be dialed back just a bit. I don't need to dive into this over the next like 5 days and just go ham on it. Like I do need to learn about it, but I
Yeah.
don't need to, like it probably is not worth me panicking. It probably is not worth it's well, it can never be worth me losing my peace. It's not worth me losing my sanity.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well,
it's
new
not worth
technology
me
should always
mortgaging
be
time with my kids to try and pick up on this thing
new technology should
necessarily.
always be at least taken at arm's length first, because there are very few technologies based on what they are that are necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
By being able to split the atom, that can either power a city or level one. Powering an entire city is a good thing. And if we can figure out what to do with the spent fuel rods that won't just completely destroy an ecosystem, then I think we found the ticket there. Destroying a city is not really a great thing, especially with 40 years of fallout.
That image of keeping it at arm's length while you study it, I think is yeah, it's a perfect image of the thing
Yeah.
and
And
of
don't
the whole way
be,
of looking at it.
you ought to keep it at arm's length. Don't shove it away, but don't immediately embrace it either.
What I'd like to do at this point is just look at, we'll see how many examples we do, but a couple examples of realms of life where AI is/will be having a big impact, and what that arm's length approach to it perhaps is. And the first one I'll bring up is education.
Mm,
Obviously, there's a lot of examples of plagiarism and cheating, like that immediately comes to mind when you think about it, and that's heinous for all the obvious reasons.
yeah,
I don't care
that's
how
the immediate threat. And then all those like TikTok tutorials of kids teaching others how to use AI to plagiarize
it
and
should
to
all be
cheat
banned.
and to basically write their essays for them. No.
To quote a good friend of mine, send them to the mines. That's what I say. That'd be a
Was
fitting
that me
punishment.
too, or was that somebody else?
That's somebody else.
Okay, that does sound like something I
One
was
of our
thinking.
original listeners, I might add, though. Actually, um, so obviously that's a problem. I could see it aiding teachers in a certain sense, basically just following the same principles we've talked about. It
I mean,
shouldn't
depending
make your
on what it
lesson plan.
is,
That would be pretty dumb.
depending on what it is and what the assignments are, a teacher could, in theory, if the AI is properly trained, a teacher could, in theory, take grading time out and have the AI grade certain things.
Yeah, like your math test can be graded by an AI because it's math. It can do math. No, don't have it grade my writing assignment, but have it grade the math. But I know that intuitively.
But you could
One makes more
potentially
sense.
even grade AI to just look for grammar.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to read it quite as actively, where it can look for grammar, then mark the bad grammar spots, which Microsoft Word already does. Not very well, but it already does that. But you could have AI just at least examine it for grammar, and then you go through that after making all the grammar marks and read it for quality.
Mm-hmm.
Because something could have impeccable grammar and be complete crap, but it shouldn't replace the teacher.
Which leads into another example I have within the world of education. So back in April, one of the main AI companies out there, Anthropic, um, who on the surface actually also seem to be somewhat conscientious when it comes to AI. I know
Mm-hmm.
they've done, for example, they've done research um, on AI models, including their own, that's really revealed that it will blackmail people in an attempt to preserve itself, and their
That's not
own
fun.
model their own model ran afoul of that, and they were honest about it. So I do like that about them. Not that I'm not
Let's
that I'm deep into it.
reprogram them and not have the self protection mechanism, the self defense mechanisms in there,
Yeah, that would be nice.
because that's not so good.
No, but here's the example I want to bring up. In April, they announced that they were releasing something or creating something or whatever called Claude. Claude is their model. Claude for education. And it was going to be something that you could buy as like an institutional product. So like campus colleges could buy it for their schools. Maybe high schools could. I don't know the fullest extent.
Mm-hmm.
And it could do a number of things, but like one of the highlights of what it did was it would be available to students to help them in their learning. But instead of providing answers, what it would reply with was a set of questions. It was trained to ask them questions in order to make them think. It was trained to make them basically engage in Socratic dialogue
Right.
with the thing in order to become smarter. And I can see upsides and downsides to that, but I want your instant reaction to that. Hearing that.
Well, my instant reaction is, well, at least it's not giving them all the answers, which is what I'm sure some of the less scrupulous AI companies would be creating. Uh, my my first reaction to that is, okay, fine. If it's asking them questions, that's good because at least it's prompting them to think enough to be able to answer a question. Now I want to know what kind of questions it's asking them. Are these like softball questions? Are these yes or no questions? Is it only responding with is it only responding to a well thought out answer, one that is clearly well thought out?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It was like I have to see it myself to be able to have a formed opinion on it. My second thing, whether or not I've seen it, is I also don't want my students to just be having a conversation with a robot. They need to be talking to each other, which is vital to philosophy, to thinking, to just logic in general.
Mm-hmm.
Is you have to be able to talk to somebody else. So I would say maybe also put limits on it to maybe how far it will go, and then say, nah, I'm going to stop here. You need to go talk to a human being.
I think that'd be really smart and really cool.
If AIs were programmed to say, look, you've been talking to me long enough, I don't want to talk to you for a week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to answer any more of your questions for a week. Go talk to a human being. If it senses how long you've been talking to it, or the kind of things that you've been asking it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I kind of want there to just be a really snarky and sarcastic AI that when you ask it, hey, what's a good burger place in town? I don't know. Look at a map.
Sounds like we need to train an AI model off of you.
I mean, if we trained an AI model to encourage people to think for themselves, then that would be a good thing. Rather than just immediately giving them the answers to things and saying, "All right, look, you've been talking to me enough. Please go talk to an actual human being."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the themes that we've kind of hit on, but have only explicitly talked about so much is community and how much
Yeah,
that is threatened by AI. So, like
because
when
if
I look,
AI gets convincing enough, people could just start talking to AI constantly and not to each other,
yep,
which is just going to be an empty void that people are going to get sucked into. And why I think we need AI to be programmed to at least eventually say, "Do you even have any friends?"
yes, yes, we do.
Like, do you have any friends? If the answer is yes, then have the AI say, or have it programmed so that it says, "Okay, good. Please go talk to them. It's not good for you to be talking to me this long. Please go talk to them." And if the answer is no, the first reaction should be, "I don't believe you, but if that's really the case, go make some."
Exactly. Yeah. When I look at something like a Claude for education, when I look at something like when I look at, I guess this applies to all AI models. That's one of the biggest safeguards that needs to be put in place. And if the companies aren't going to do it themselves, which I'm not going to expect that they will, then I need to do that. And I need to be able to train people on how to do it. And so I need to learn how to use this thing appropriately in one of a number of good ways, like or one of a number of good styles, if you will, in life. But I can't let it just replace my talking to people. I can't. What you said about philosophy, studying that as a studying that just by talking with other people as opposed to just getting the Socratic dialogue from an AI.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more value to getting it from a human person. Even if their ideas are wrong, like if you're properly formed and trained and well guided, you actually can learn more from the bad idea from the human,
Yeah, well, you
perhaps.
have to talk to people you don't agree with, almost more than you need to talk to people that you do agree with.
Yeah. You can have a good back and forth, and that good back and forth will be more human than it will be with an AI.
This is why husbands and wives need to talk more. Everybody needs to talk with somebody that disagrees with them. So husbands, go talk to your wives, and wives, listen to your husbands.
The only thing I'll briefly mention is that it is my hope that, well, this would be hopefully good coming out of evil in a sense. If plagiarism gets so bad in higher education because of AI, I hope that they all just go back to a blue book system and everybody suffers when they have to write their papers,
Oh
because that would
no!
get around the problem.
What I want is if like plagiarism and misuse of AI gets so bad that institutions widely just go back to Xerox machines and typewriters. Like screw it, we're doing it by hand.
2035, the new CIS 102 course, How to Use a Typewriter, will be taught by Ethan Stevenson at your local college.
Sort of the dream situation that I have in my head where institutions are like and businesses and schools basically just go, you know what, people are having AI do their work for them, they're having do their research for them, and they're just becoming lazy. So businesses will do one of two things: either they'll just fire all of their employees and just have AI do all the work anyway,
Mm-hmm.
or the other businesses will go, all right, that's it, no more computers, we're
Well,
going back to Xerox machines and typewriters.
the businesses care
This
about the
newspaper office is this is a newspaper office, damn it, and it's going to sound like one.
businesses are going to care about ROIs. But what's going to save us in that regard is just human nature. Um, to paraphrase Dostoevsky, if humanity built a place or was put in a place where they ate every sweet thing they could, and really the only things that they had to concern themselves with were sleep and the propagation of the human race, the very first thing they would do is set about smashing the place up so that they could have their adventure. Like, so we fire all of the people, so we replace all of the jobs. No, that's not going to happen
That
because
company will probably wind up collapsing within the decade.
human people will not stand for it. And whether they do or not, whether they do collapse or not, we'll find a way. We're a cockroach of a species. We're very, very, very adaptable, and we will have our adventure. As much as some people try and deny that to themselves, and they're very good at it, human beings in general, or at least in spirit, will be able to have their adventure and will pursue having it.
You were
So,
not made for comfort. You were made for greatness.
yep. So yeah, I mean, I'm not royally concerned about AI replacing everything and these other things for that reason. There's a
No,
lot of
I'm
bad
not really.
philosophy about it. There's people that will say that, and I'm just like, yeah, you do not understand yourself.
I'm not really overly concerned about AI taking a whole lot of jobs. Anyway, the jobs that AI would take are jobs that I will think that AI probably should take. Like
Exactly.
a job that causes a man to be hunched over a computer 8 hours a day and he's wearing out his eyes and his spine doing nothing but crunch numbers. Yeah, I think AI can probably handle that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And maybe let's find something for that man to do that maybe he has a better bent to do. Maybe he can go home, say he has hobbies that he's really good at. Hobbies can be monetized these days.
Yeah.
Say
If you're
he's a talented artist, maybe he can then put enough effort into his art and to promoting it that he can then make a living off of that. Let's whatever it is, he can do something that he is better made to do than just sit at a desk and crunch numbers all day and push pencils.
Yeah,
And my final
somebody,
thought, the
yeah, go
best
for it.
possible place that AI can be used is in flight scheduling.
I don't think many people would disagree with that.
Because if AI can take out the idiocy of me starting a flight in Kansas City, flying to Chicago, then to Charlotte, then to Los Angeles, and then to Bismarck, North Dakota, if AI can take that out, I am all for it. If AI can just go, all right, well, you guys are going here, and you guys are going here, then why don't we just put you all together? Have the fewest number of people be put as little out of their way as possible. It used to be that air travel was a privilege, now it's an inconvenience. And if AI can return it to being an actual privilege, at least in a certain way, I'd like to be able to take off from St. Louis in the morning and be to Bismarck before that afternoon.
That right there is so many things summed up in this conversation. Like on
More
one
than
hand,
once, I have
it's
taken a flight and had a connecting flight at a place, then had a layover, like a 4-hour layover, when an airplane has taken off for that destination 3 times within that layover. 3 other flights to that same destination have taken off. Why am I on this one? Why do I have the 4-hour layover? Why have I been traveling for 12 hours today? And why has anybody? Who knows however long all those other people had to wait, or however long they're going to wait. So let's say I'm given a 4-hour layover, and while I'm waiting, within like an hour, which is more than enough time to find your gate at most airports, within an hour, at least 2 other planes have taken off for that same destination. And there's a guy on one of those planes that has a 4-hour layover at that destination. Well, if he started at my flight, can we switch places? If he started at my flight, with my flight, that I have the 4-hour layover for, then he'll get there 4 hours later and in a much closer amount of time to when his next flight takes off.
this is very unfair to you,
And if I had
but
his
what
flight,
I've
then I'd be there by now.
this is very unfair to you, but what I've just witnessed is a self-described curmudgeon who likes to take his life slow and wants to keep this stuff as arm's length. Then think of how it could solve a pet peeve, and he's like, "Damn it, I want it."
I am all for taking life slow when it makes sense.
Exactly.
If I go up in an airplane, I want to come down as close to my final destination as possible.
Yeah, without the zigzag. That's how I feel about Maps apps. Like, I get really pissed when they lead me astray. I'm like, you had one job.
When they give you 5 different paths to go, and the one they recommend isn't even the most direct one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but this one's somehow more fuel efficient. How?
Yeah, we're not gonna.
I did
So
deliberately take a longer path because I thought that it would be a more scenic route once. And I thought it would just be a more pleasant drive, and it was.
mm-hmm.
So hooray for me.
Exactly. One other problematic realm that I want to quickly bring up with regards to AI is something called character AI and other
Mm-hmm.
things that fit within that realm. Character.ai is a website, and you can go on there and you can have conversations with characters. I haven't been on it, but so I don't know if they're, um, but it's a bunch of generated characters that you can have full on conversations with. They're going to have different backgrounds and different stories and different perspectives and who knows what. The really worrying thing about that is that millions and millions of conversations have already been had on that site already.
How long has it been up?
Well, I don't know how long, but considering the timeline of AI in general, it can't be that long. But there's a market for that. And when you talked earlier about, getting sucked into a dark hole with these types of things, that's what I was thinking about. Like, think about all the kids that behind their parents' backs, and I want to bring this to how do you deal with this in a family, but behind their parents' backs are just hopping on the web like they do for umpteen other million things, so the parents don't care about it. And among the other things they're doing, they're engaging in this stuff. And it just strikes at the heart of the social interaction skills they could be developing, the community they can be developing. Like, you should not be having these conversations with fake people. If you want to do it for fun here and there, like, fine. But you
I mean,
can't
just as
get.
a novelty, maybe, but
Yeah, but beyond
I would
that,
say that
like,
this is even an aspect of AI that should not have been explored in the first place.
yeah, I
And
would agree.
I'm not going to rant and rave about because it shouldn't have been done. I'm not going to get overly invested in the fact that it has, because it has, and there's nothing I can do about it. All I can do is what I plan to do in general, uh, is just not let my children have computer access unsupervised under the age of 18,
Mm-hmm.
or at least until I think that they are mature enough to guide themselves, to know what to use it for, to know how
Mm-hmm.
to properly use the thing.
And you don't live a life so exhausted where you just are like, I haven't really talked with Johnny about all of these things in life. Will he be mature enough to use the internet and stuff? Like, can I give him the phone that he wants? Like,
Yeah.
all of his friends have it. Like,
Well,
fine, he can have a phone. Like, that's a bad route of parenting right there.
yeah.
It's uneducated about your own children, which means you've failed well before that moment.
Well, because you're not. There's so many mistakes that are made of people not getting to know their children and not wanting to take the time to get to know their children. Because when a child asks a question, it should be answered. Like, you have to ask yourself, why would a kid be going to character AI to have a conversation? Especially if this kid has siblings and if this kid goes to school or lives in a neighborhood. Like, why is anybody outside of some individual person who lives in a hole in the ground in the Mojave Desert going to this? Well, it's probably because they're actually starved for human interaction. And they're so starved for the real thing that they'll take a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
And when that's a child, that is horrifying. Because that means his parents aren't talking to him. His parents are not spending time with him. Now, in what way are the parents not spending time with him? Are they just thinking they can ignore him and, give him food and water and let him grow up on his own and he'll be all right? Is it that? Or is it because they've fallen into this idea that, oh, both mom and dad need to have jobs and nobody's ever home? Or does he have a single mom or a single dad? Single parent homes are apparently more common than two parent homes these days,
Really?
or they're getting there.
Ugh.
I know at this point, at least with our generation, it's far and away more common to be living together than to be married, which is a sad and sick statistic. But if it's not more common to grow up in a single parent household than a two parent household, if it if that isn't the case now, I wager that it probably will be at some point in the future if things aren't done to deal with that. I don't actually know that statistic off the top of my head, but I know it's definitely way higher than it should be. But these kids are probably going to this website because they're starved for human interaction. And they're starved for human interaction because people have been staring at their phones for way too long, especially kids, because there's way too parents that think that children are just petulant little monsters, and the only way to deal with them is to keep them quiet.
Yeah, that attitude's out there all over the place.
Like, I remember there was this.
Then again, we've bred society from the beginning to say, like, well, yeah, I actually care about, I feel like having a kid now. I feel like suffering with that. Then maybe I feel like suffering with it a second time. And then I'm like, nah, I'm done. Tire tubes, I'm going to go live my I'm going to go live my life now. 2 is enough, and I'll go retire.
We bred
Talk
society
about
for that, but that's not good.
the sick and sadistic.
Yeah. Like, I'm just tired and I want to do my own thing now and just let these little monsters run loose
Yeah.
because I don't want to pay any attention to them, or I can't because I work too much. It's like this thing where it's like, where people tell you, "Oh, don't work at home because then your kids will distract you." For one thing, my children are not a distraction. Now, sometimes if they come to me with a problem that's a very minor problem that doesn't have to be dealt with right now, and I'm in the middle of a meeting, then it's okay, sweetie. I'm in the middle of a meeting. Like earlier, my daughter got out of bed because she wanted to come in and spend time with me while she needed to be in bed. So I said, "No, go back to bed." I'm not sloughing her off. Children actually need to be given attention by their parents. Like, I remember this, there was this article that came out, an opinion piece, came out around Father's Day. And it was one of these feminist things of this sad 45-year-old woman complaining about her dad for things that he had done because he wasn't the father she thought he should have been 30 years ago or something like that. That's the bare minimum of the article, but there were a couple of things that kind of did stand out to me, which was the constantly moving around, him constantly being at work, even though, like, she acknowledges that she grew up very comfortable and she had a lot of things, but I think she implies that she's an only child as well. But he worked so much he was hardly ever home. They moved around a lot, and when they finally settled down into a place, he worked a whole bunch, was hardly ever home, and apparently, like, she was a grown woman before she found out that he had season tickets to the Chargers games every year and went to them almost every time the Chargers were playing in town. And she also, like, specifically lists a circumstance in which if she was watching a baseball game on TV with her dad and he didn't answer a question about why the umpire called strike when the ball was inside the strike zone, or why the umpire called strike when the batter didn't swing, and he just ignored her. Now, at this point, the reaction should be, you're 45 years old, let these things go. But we can sort of look back on that as a lesson, and a lot of us kind of go, yeah, there's a lot of mistakes made there on his part. Because
I don't think you have to let them go. I
the
think that
initial conservative reaction from more than one pundit that I saw was, "You ungrateful brat, your dad worked so hard to give you nice things and now you're complaining about him. And you're mad because he didn't answer your petulant little questions."
any pundits who had that opinion, what the hell, man? Like,
They're,
it should be common sense
well, and
that you
these are
should
two
see the
guys that I
flaws of that line of thinking.
these are two guys that I otherwise respect and I usually listen to, but at this point I was like, no, this is a genuine thing. And, like, if I'm ever watching a baseball game and one of my kids asks, "Hey, the umpire called strike and the batter didn't swing." Well, at that point, I'll say, "Hey, you see that little box? That's called a strike zone. If the ball is inside the strike zone, it's a strike, whether the batter swings or not." That took me about 5 seconds. Now, if I have already answered the question, especially if I've already answered the question more than once, I'm starting to have to do this with my 3-year-old because sometimes they talk just to hear the sound of their own voice. And they ask questions because they think it's fun. And 3-year-olds don't have any impulse control, so they don't have maybe I shouldn't ask that question now. If I've already answered the same question 3 times in the last 5 minutes, then at some point I'm probably going to turn around and say, "I have already answered this question. Please stop asking it until you're ready to actually pay attention to my answer." Because you can't just jump literally every time your child opens his mouth. At that point, the kid's running the house.
Mm-hmm. But even if you said the same thing for an unjustifiable reason, that would still be better than the silent response,
Yeah, then
or
just
would be less
completely
bad.
ignoring.
So, and I don't mean, by the way, like, she has to hold on to these things, But
And completely ignoring would be the wrong response, even if I've already answered the question multiple times.
um, yeah, this woman has a lot of grieving to do. After that they can be let go of. What I'm what I was reminded also of when you were saying that, which is well said. Tiger Woods' dad had a rule, and that rule was basically if Tiger came to him with something, um, he was going to drop whatever he was doing and chat with his son. And that conversation might take a couple minutes, might take several hours. Didn't matter. Like that was the rule.
That might not be the best example because we all know how Tiger Woods did turn out.
I didn't say anything about his character. I'm talking about his dad.
But I will give his dad those points. It's like, yes, if your son comes to you with something, you drop what you're doing and you hear him out. That just seems right.
Exactly.
Your response to your son should never be, "Get away from me, boy, you're bothering me."
Yeah. There's a reason that the dad in Mary Poppins does not stay the same character. He actually transforms in this
Yeah.
regard.
He's actually the one that whole movie is about. He's the reason she comes. Is because he's not being a father.
He goes from being a rich bastard of a banker to a much richer flyer of kites.
There's another movie from the 90s called Uncle Nino. It's a very, very sweet movie. So there's this family. It's this kind of typical upper middle class suburban family. The dad has a job in a business of some kind. Mom is kind of at her wit's end, so she just sits down and drinks wine at the end of the day. Or it's the 90s, early 2000s, I would say. You know, the boy and a girl who can't stand each other, and the boy's got the keep out sign on his door and all the rock posters on these. Basically, what you would see in a kid's room in the early 2000s on TV. Which, by the way, my room never looked like that.
If you and I were homeschooled, there's a
that's true.
reason that we are sitting with the backgrounds that we have. Nice Lord of the Rings background, by the way.
Basically, their life sort of gets a little bit upended when the dad's uncle comes to visit from Italy. And he doesn't speak any English, and he is used to life as it is in this tiny little village in Italy. And there's a lot. It's a comedy. There's just a lot of these very funny little moments. Like he goes shopping with the mom and doesn't understand that you can't take a bite out of a plum that's on display in the supermarket. They get thrown out because he keeps sampling all of the produce and spitting it out on the floor because it's no good. But basically, by the end of that movie, because this dad is so caught up in his business that he doesn't really even know his kids. Basically, the last things that the dad does in that movie is he basically verbally flips off his boss. Because the boss is trying to like shove the finger in his face. Like, there's some like project or deal that they're trying to have go down, and it's not working where they're at, which is like some eastern city. It's probably somewhere around Philadelphia or Boston. It's not working here, so now we've got to go up to Canada on X weekend and spend the whole weekend up in Canada. And basically, the dad finally realizes at one point, like, why am I chasing these promotions if they're not letting me spend time with my kid? Because his kid apparently started a band at the school and was going to have a breakout performance at the talent show, and he was going to miss it otherwise. He didn't because he basically told the boss to go, go fly a kite, basically. I'm going to go be with my kid. And it's a really, really good little scene. It's a very good movie. I recommend everybody watch it. But kind of where I'm at with that sort of thing. And if to bring it back to AI, if AI can speed up a businessman's process so he can go home and be with his children and still make enough to support his wife and kids, I am all for that. If AI can help put fathers back in the home, I am okay with that. I'm okay with whatever tools are necessary to put a dad back in the home where he can be present and listen to his children. And he can speak to and love his wife, because that is the father's job. Love your wife
Brilliantly
and
said,
raise your
man.
children. And I'm okay with anything that gives you the ability to do that correctly.
Brilliantly said. Yeah, I guess in closing, I would say you can't hide from this thing, and you can't fully embrace it like we've said. It's a tool.
You can't pretend that it
Use it.
doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Don't use it for things that it ought not be used for. And feel free to use it for things that it should be used for. And maybe there are things that it really should be used for. But in your use of it, make it serve you and make it serve things that matter. Your family, God, community. Don't make yourself a servant of it. And far too many people will do that. So make sure that you're on guard against that, and make sure that you can show other people how to still encounter this thing prudently, temperately, and yet live a joyful life focused on what matters. Challenging, yeah. But such is life. Suck it up and deal with it. It's the way it is. You know, I can wish the times are not what they are, but all I have to do is decide what to do with the time that is given me. And with that, we bid you all a good evening.